It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back. I'm Jan Morgan. Welcome to the Paul Harrell program, where conservative ideas meet reality. We're at that intersection, and I'm Jan Morgan filling in for Paul Harrell. With me this half hour is KrisAnne Hall, constitutional lawyer. And KrisAnne, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Jan, it is always my pleasure and to be with you and Paul. It really, really is.
All right, good deal. Well, let's get right to the core, the meat of what we're talking about. The reason we wanted you on today is because medical marijuana passed. It's legal in the state of Arkansas. Our first dispensary opened in Hot Springs last week, and there were thousands of people lined up. I mean, people were lined up, KrisAnne, long before the doors opened. There were long lines all day. It's just now beginning to slow down after a week and a half. It was incredible to drive by and see that and know that that's just one dispensary. And I've been told that over 8,000 to 10,000 people had already been cleared for medical marijuana license prescriptions in this state, which frightens me because I look at that and say there's 10,000 people in Arkansas who had gun rights who are about to lose them. Am I wrong in saying that they're going to lose their gun rights?
Well, it depends on what perspective you're speaking from, actually, Jan, because number one, the right to keep and bear arms is intended to be a natural right, and it's not something that the government is supposed to be taking from you. It is something that you can forfeit by committing an act of violence or against someone else, right? So liberty is actually freedom plus morality. So you're free to do whatever you want, but the boundary of liberty is that you cannot harm or control the right of another. So rights like the right to keep and bear arms. Samuel Adams said, stems from the first law of nature, the duty of self-preservation. Our Declaration of Independence says you have that we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these lies liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Samuel Adams says that among those four rights are the right to protect and defend those rights yourself in the best manner that is possible. So the government may pass a law to take your rights, but that doesn't make that law lawful. And that's something that we as citizens really need to understand the difference between.
I think a lot of us understand it loud and clear, KrisAnne. I think it's the federal government that somehow doesn't understand it. Somebody forgot to give them the memo, that a right is not a privilege and rights can't be regulated or restricted. I don't know how that all got turned around with the feds, but just so you know, I have a federal firearms license, so I particularly have to stay on top of this sort of thing. And let me tell you what ATF is saying. I don't know if you've heard about this, but ATF is saying that if you have a medical marijuana prescription, because the federal government still views marijuana as illegal, then you are not allowed to have a gun. You cannot even be in possession of firearms or ammunition. And Arkansas State Police are saying you're going to lose your concealed handgun license, and they're not going to hand you a license if you want one. And then if you already have a license, you're not going to get it renewed. Tim Loggins with Patriots of Act 746 just sent me this message. He says law enforcement will be checking. Of course, he's been talking to people in law enforcement. We're all are trying to find out how are you going to enforce this? What's going to happen? He says law enforcement officers will be checking to ensure that medical marijuana is in its original packaging. And if not, you're subject to charges as if you didn't have a prescription. Amazing.
Well, you have three problems there, Jan. Three very, very large problems. Number one, as the state of Arkansas has come to recognize, the Constitution does not authorize the federal government to regulate what we wear, what we eat, what we drink, what we smoke, what we use for medication. That is not a power that has been delegated to the federal government. That is an authority that is reserved to the state. Now, Arkansas obviously recognizes that by making medical marijuana accessible to citizens of Arkansas. recognize that every federal law regarding marijuana is not lawful. As a matter of fact, our founder said, if it's not authorized by the Constitution, it is null and void. And the Constitution actually has a clause, Article 6, Clause 2, that says that if laws made by Congress are not made in pursuance to the Constitution, the judges of the states are not bound by those laws. So Arkansas recognizes that with marijuana. Now, Arkansas needs to also recognize that with firearms. There is absolutely no constitutional authority for the federal government to regulate firearms or ammunition in any way whatsoever. Mm-hmm. The invention of federal power comes from the Congress inventing authority, the judiciary supporting inventive authority based on an errant interpretation of the Commerce Clause. So which is the same errant interpretation that the government uses to make marijuana illegal. So if Arkansas is going to recognize that the federal government has no authority over marijuana, then they also need to recognize that not only is the federal government not authorized to make laws on arms and ammunition, they're also specifically prohibited from doing so. So the state police, if the state police need to refuse to enforce the federal rules that say, hey, you can't possess firearms if you are a medical marijuana user. Now, here's the crazy thing: Congress hasn't passed a law. This is a regulation created by the ATF.
Right.
So now you have an agency. This is such a constitutional misconduct 4 times removed, right? Mm-hmm. So now you have a regulatory agency who has been elected by no one, depriving the American people of a right that, number one, the federal government doesn't possess the authority to do, and number 2, this is legislation without representation. So the state of Arkansas going to make medical marijuana illegal needs to step up and defend its citizens and put its money where its mouth is and protect their gun rights too.
That's where I was hoping you would head with this, because the job of the governor of our state and our sheriff, the sheriff has more constitutional authority in each individual county than the president of the United States. But, this is when I'll never forget, Curtis Coleman told me once, he said, the role of the governor is to be the line. He is to be the heavy hand between the overreach of the federal government and to protect the people of his state. We've got to get back to the state's rights. It's almost like, state governors have forgotten that we have states' rights and that, they have that power, that state sovereignty. And at this time, in this place in our country, I think more than ever, we need to elect people who understand that and will use that authority to defend the people of their states. Now, let me ask you this. Other states have medical marijuana. Some states like Colorado have actually legalized marijuana. So, what are some other states doing, and what have they done to stand between the strong arm of the federal government and to protect the people of their state?
Well, you're absolutely right, and I know you know because you have my book, Sovereign Duty.
I love your book.
Thank you. My book, Sovereign Duty, if we have people out there who are listening and thinking, I don't understand how this works, how can the federal government do this if KrisAnne is right, then my book, Sovereign Duty, will break that down and explain it to you, because the truth of the matter is the founders, the drafters and ratifiers of our Constitution actually expected a day where the federal government would attempt to escape its constitutional boundaries. And they wrote down, at the same time that they were writing the Constitution, they wrote down the solutions to controlling the federal government. And you're absolutely right, Jan. The solution is external. It is not internal. The federal government's only check and balance is not itself. The federal government's greatest check and balance exists in the state and local government. And James Madison, the father of the Constitution, 4th President of the United States, said that the state legislators were the greatest guard of the people's liberty on earth in regard to usurpations of federal power. Mm-hmm. So you said the sheriff is more powerful than the president of the United States. Your sheriff is most powerful than the governor.
Which is why we need to pay attention to who we elect. Well, guess what, KrisAnne? I have the sheriff of Garland County, Arkansas, who's coming on with me in the last 15 minutes of the 7 o'clock hour. And I'm going to specifically ask him about that and what his officers are going to do and what they plan to do as far as handling this, because people are confused. I think that our government thrives on the fact in this state that we are in a state of confusion. Not we, most of us know what our rights are, but there are a lot of people who don't know, and the state government in this state seems to prefer it that way. Rather than, answer and make it clear for everybody that this perpetual state of confusion is to the government's benefit, not to the benefit of the people. And expecting to get clarification from the state government is not something that I'm going to hold my breath for. And I certainly am not expecting our current leader in this state to step up and be the defense mechanism between the strong arm of the federal government and the people. But hopefully one of these days we will have a governor and we will have sheriffs throughout this state who will understand the power that they have to protect and the responsibility that they have to stand up for the people of their state. And we'll see what happens.
It's highly inconsistent, Jan, that the state of Arkansas would stand up in favor of the people's rights in the very specific limits of the Constitution on federal power regarding medical marijuana, and then turn around and say, we're going to allow the federal government, we're going to help the federal government enforce unconstitutional, unauthorized laws against your guns. It is highly inconsistent. It is absolutely unlawful, and it flies in the face of the duty of the state and local government. Your sheriff needs to understand that even by the terms of the Constitution even by the terms of the Supreme Court of the United States, he has an authority above the federal government. It's a it's a case called Mac Prince v. U.S., where the Supreme Court, in the majority opinion, actually quoted the Federalist Papers and James Madison and said that there are two separate spheres. There is federal and there is state and local. And your sheriff is the chief executive of the local government above the governor and the state itself, because he's not a hireling of the government. He is a constitutionally established elected representative of the people. And as that duty, he has a duty to protect the rights of the people, even when it's the government that's going against those rights. And that's what the Supreme Court has said, that the sheriff has no obligation to enforce these laws whatsoever. And the problem is we don't have sheriffs that understand that. Number one, we don't teach these things in the academy. Number two, we don't teach these things in law schools. And number three, we don't teach these things in schools at all. And so that's, Jen, you've had me out to range teaching. I've been in Arkansas teaching with Bama Carey. I've been in Arkansas teaching with separate groups. These fundamental principles of constitutional knowledge are being lost in America, because you're absolutely right. Government in charge of education doesn't want its people to know, because people will tamely surrender their liberties when they don't understand the limits of government.
Speaking of your teaching, you are coming back to Arkansas in October. I believe it's October 10th, and you're going to be speaking in the Capitol Rotunda. What are you going to talk about on that day? And do you know the time? And I'll kind of throw that at you. You may not. You've got a hectic schedule, may not remember the exact time, but if you don't, I'll get that for the folks out there listening. But what are you going to talk about in October when you come back here?
Well, you can. I don't have the time on me, Jan, but you can get it at my website, KrisAnneHall.com, KrisAnneHall.com, and there's a calendar tab. You just click on it, and it shows you everything that I'm doing. Okay. I'm going to be talking about state sovereignty, Jan, but that's the whole reason to bring me to the Capitol, is to give your legislators the opportunity to understand the role and duties of state legislators to defend the Constitution. And our founders said defending the Constitution means stepping up and keeping the federal government within their constitutional bounds. Quoting a law professor from Virginia, is that the supremacy clause makes the federal government supreme. supreme to the states. That is an absolute lie. There is nothing in the Supremacy Clause that makes the federal government supreme to the states. The Supremacy Clause, which is Article 6, Clause 2, makes the Constitution supreme and everything else subordinate to it. And it even has a clause in it that says laws that are made not in pursuance to the Constitution, the judges of the states are not bound by them. Any law made by Congress must be made consistent with the Constitution in order to be valid. And that means that these laws, these federal gun laws, are completely invalid, just like Arkansas has recognized that federal marijuana laws are completely invalid.
You know, speaking of we were talking about this position of ATF, which I called ATF recently because when we opened our first medical marijuana dispensary, I called ATF to find out, okay, I know what your position is, but I need somebody to come on camera with me and answer the people's questions and be more specific about whether or not you're all going to enforce this. And you know what they said? They said, well, you know, when Jeff Sessions was Attorney General, we knew where he stood. He was just adamantly opposed to the whole marijuana thing, regardless across the board. But now we have a new AG and we're not sure where he stands. And so nobody really wants to step out there and forcefully say, this is our position. So it's going to be interesting to see what William Barr does with that. We are running out of time, but I just wanted to thank you once again, KrisAnne, for coming on and for talking to the people and for what you do across America. I'm telling you folks, if you ever get a chance to hear KrisAnne teach, and I say teach rather than speak because she teaches, and I'm telling you, it's the most interesting teaching that you'll ever get. For anybody to be able to teach you about the Constitution and people not fall asleep, KrisAnne can do it. She does it. I've heard her do it. I've watched her do it over and over again. She's totally amazing. And KrisAnne, best of luck. Tell people real quickly how they can find you. Where's your website? Give them the info very quickly on that.
My website is KrisAnneHall.com, KrisAnnehall.com. And that's where you can get access to our nationally syndicated radio show, our podcast, our videos, and all the articles that I write on the Constitution. You can also contact us through the website to book your venue.
Okay. Thank you so much, sweet girl. Love you. Take care.
Thank you. Love you too. Bye-bye.
I've known KrisAnne a long time. We'll be back after this break.